site visit scheme. So a long time ago, between 2003 2005, there was a real issue to do with women in physics. I'm sure you're all aware of it. We decided to go and investigate it and see what the culture of university physics departments was like. One of the nice things that came out of this scheme was heads of department saying to us the most positive outcome of the visits was that possibly for the first time gender issues were discussed openly. So we visited departments, we gave them a feedback report, told them how gender friendly they were or weren't, and then we used all of the findings into developing this award scheme that we have called Project Jenni. So Jenni's now been around for 10 years. It was developed in 2007 as a result of all the best practice we found through the site visits. There was a lot of terrible practice, obviously, but we found a lot of kind of nuggets of really good practice going on, and we brought them together into a framework. So what Project Jenni does is it's a framework of 6 principles for award and excellence in gender equality in physics. So it's very much providing departments and organisations with a set of principles to work their way through to make sure that they are becoming and advancing gender equality. Jenni is a peer review process, so it's not driven by HR, it's very much driven by physicists for physicists. And the real crux of Jenni is that the Institute of Physics and our Jenni assessment panel will come into your organisation. We actually talk to people involved. We get a sense of what's happening on the ground, what your priorities are as a department or an organisation in the scheme, and help you action plan for change. Okay, this might be, based on the last conversation, this might be a bit controversial. It's based on transparency, openness and good practice for all. It addresses your point about positive action. This is not a scheme to fix the women. This is not about fixing women. This is about making sure that everybody understands good working practices, so it allows all your talent to rise. And the more that you can be open and transparent about these issues, the more you actually become more diverse and more inclusive. And what I'm going to do is later on in my presentation just work through some examples of things that university departments and organisations involved in Jenni are actually doing, so you can see the good practice that's happening. One of our other heads of department said, and I think it's so true of every organisation, this could be in any organisation in the UK, we have lost a number of very talented people and don't want to keep doing that. 2 or 3 women left and have built successful careers elsewhere which they could have had here. And I'm sure that's very true of every organisation, and it doesn't just apply to women, it applies to all your talent within an organisation. You know, there are talented people leaving, going elsewhere, taking their careers on, and we need to make sure we retain that talent within our organisations. So I just want to very quickly cover a bit of data so you understand the context that the Institute and the Project Jenni is working in. So every person's Jenni journey starts with data. That's where you start. You collect your data and analyse it specific to your circumstances so you understand your own issues and the own barriers to progress within your organisation. And I've just kind of pathwayed the typical physics women in physics. So at A-level, I'm sure everybody in the room knows, if you've got any touch on physics at all, that, you know, it's 20% girls do A-level physics. That 20% figure hasn't budged for decades. We've been working on this for a long time. We still can't budge that 20% figure. Physics is the 4th most popular subject for boys at A-level. We're not going to get many more boys doing physics. It's the 19th for girls, so we've got a lot of room to grow the girls in physics. However, we know that girls are more than twice as likely to do A-level physics if they go to a single-sex school or a school with a 6th form. It's not the girls, it's not physics, it's the culture that physics is cited in within schools. We know this from our recent research. We move on to undergraduate degree. We do well at pulling girls through to undergraduate degree, so there's roughly 20% women at undergraduate degree level. However, behind that figure, there's a story. So women are more likely to graduate with a BSc, a 3-year degree, than an MPhys. And the MPhys is your, the pathway, for those that aren't aware. MPhys, MSci degrees, they're kind of more of the research pathway degrees. And what we find is that women and men are equally likely to register on the BSc and MPhys programs, but actually when they come to graduate, women are more likely to have transferred away from the MPhys onto the BSc. Why is that important for people in this room? Our data shows that 28% of women, in brackets 18% of men with an MPhys, enter scientific and technology industries when they graduate, compared to 10% women and 9% men with a BSc. So actually your recruitment pools are from the MPhys. But women are less likely to get an MPhys in the first place. So actually you can see that your recruitment pools are already starting to shrink. When we move on to postgraduates and postdocs, we find that 26% of those doing a PhD are women in physics, and then that drops. That's where we start to see our cliff in physics. It goes down to 19% postdoc, and just through the academic pipeline goes from there. However, again, we need to look behind that data, and research that we've done when we've talked to physics PhD students and postdocs, we've done some surveys of them recently, we found that 44% of the women, PhD students, and 35% of men, and half of all postdocs, both men and women, rate their knowledge of careers outside academia as poor or very poor. So actually, people doing PhDs in physics and postdocs in physics don't even know about the careers. You know, especially our postdocs, they don't even know about the careers in your companies. They're not being told. They don't understand the pathways. So there's a massive amount of work that we need to do together to really get the careers knowledge in, particularly at postgraduate levels in physics. And I mean, obviously I can't speak for the other STEM subjects, but I think, you know, it's probably very true in terms of a lot of PhD students and postdocs just don't know about career options outside those in over the traditional academic route. This is a really interesting one. I just wanted to draw your attention to this because it's quite worrying. So we asked PhD students what they think they will be doing in 3 to 5 years' time. And you can see, I just took the top 2 careers, so postdocs and scientists in industry and commerce. So males first year, you know, 3/4 of them say they're likely to be doing a postdoc, and you know, a third of them say they're likely to go into science and industry. And when you go to the 4th year, you see that it's dropped slightly for the men. 61% want to be a postdoc, 27% a scientist. You look at the women and it falls off a cliff. 76% in the first year say, I think I'll be a postdoc. That falls to 45% by the time they reach the final year of their PhD. And it's a similar story for scientists in industry and commerce. 24% in the first year say, yeah, I think that's a viable career path. By the time they get to the 4th year of their PhD, 13% are saying they're likely to go into science and industry and commerce. So these are women that are actually being lost to science. They are getting their PhDs and they're just moving out of physics altogether, and that's really worrying and something that we have to really work together to address this pipeline loss, and it's a real talent loss. So Project Juno is one way of doing it. It's a framework to promote an inclusive culture within your organisation or department. And I'm just going to quickly just talk through some of the real changes that are happening within departments so that you can understand the women coming through the pipeline, the culture that they're starting to experience within physics in their graduate and postgraduate context. And then when they move into industry, hopefully they'll be experiencing a similar culture within your organisations. So our senior managers are visibly championing these discussions. There's no point committing yourself to D&I unless your senior managers are visibly committed to this and saying the right things. And they role model change. Women are visible in the departments. Students will be seeing women at open days. You know, our departments make sure that open days women are there, that every student sees a woman in the first year lecture course. They're there as project supervisors, they're there as mentors, they're there on interview panels. And something you can do to reflect on is when you're recruiting, when you're walking people through your organisation, are the women in your organisation visible to potential candidates? Can they actually see women? That's so important. We talk about role models, and we had that discussion about role models. It's really important that your women are actually visible. All departments now are implementing unconscious bias training for everybody, from students all the way through to emeritus professors. This is not just something that you do in terms of recruitment and selection. It's about your whole culture. It's about people understanding conduct, understanding how to work in a completely de-biased way. And that means more people coming through our pipelines will be aware of unconscious bias and able to call it out. They're setting up forums for groups of students and staff to discuss and contribute ideas. Innovation is starting to be really encouraged so that students no longer feel, I'm just a poor little student, I can't possibly say anything. Actually, they're really encouraged to come up with ideas for change. And then some kind of pushing the envelope even further. Our departments are really encouraging career progression development activities at every career stage, particularly for students and those in the earlier career. So really in getting people to do the career development, to understand career progression pathways, to kind of look at what's beyond just the degree. Staff and students are being encouraged to participate fully in meetings, like I said, seminars and events. There's a real emphasis on a visible diversity of speakers. Again, this is having people visible in your organisation, particularly important colloquia, events, seminars, they are there. And then a really interesting thing, so within Juno we have this thing called having a transparent workload allocation model, and that is all about making sure that basically women in your department in an academic context don't get lumbered with all the admin while there's the professor sails off into the sunset with their nice research grants. But actually within your context, this is something to think about in terms of who gets the career enhancing projects, you know, who's getting these really exciting projects. Who's getting in a student context, who's getting the really exciting final year projects, and then who gets dumped with the equality work, you know, and we're really trying to promote this idea that it shouldn't just be women doing the equality work, you know, and that actually there needs to be fair recognition for the amount of work it takes to actually be working in this area, and quite often, you know, people would much rather be doing an exciting research project than they would be promoting D&I within their organisation. So how are you making sure that is really well balanced? And this is one thing that goes back to what I was saying about what the conversation earlier about positive action. You debias your processes. If you debias your processes, then actually there's no need to take positive action. You know that there's no inherent and implicit bias in the steps that you take. So again, things like universities, departments are now setting up search committees with a specific remit to seek out diversity of potential talent. There's policies on no single gender interview panels. This is an interesting one. There's now processes in place that all single gender shortlists will be reviewed. Just double check, absolutely double check that you know, when there's a single gender shortlist, just double check that's right. And then I just want to very quickly cover two more things. So Project Juno at the IOP, we believe in it. We've adopted it ourselves. We've set up our own little group, Equality and Diversity Action Group, with staff from across the organisation at all of our levels, and we've allocated the budget and resources to do this work because this takes time and money. It absolutely takes time and money. And we're looking at how we establish our framework. And our biggest issues, and I'm quite happy to share them with you because I think, you know, most organisations do suffer from the same kind of similar issues. We have transparency and communication, actually making sure that everybody hears the same message, which is really important. Consistency in management principles, and making sure that actually all your managers believe in D&I and are managing in an inclusive way across the whole organisation. That's a tricky one. And then career development for all staff, so really, really promoting career development within the role and actually outside of the role as well. I just want to finish on this slide because it's really interesting. So this is within an A-level higher physics context, so at school. There's a research study was set up to look at what effect, the different types of effect we can have on the participation of girls in the physics classroom. So they had 5 hypotheses. I don't know if you can read this, but down this one, the single-sex class, will that improve participation? Women scientists, guest speakers, having a female physics teacher, promoting the work of women scientists, and then finally discussing and action planning the issues about the underrepresentation of women in physics. And as you can see, the last one there, that was actually the only one that had a significant impact. So although a single-sex class actually really didn't make any difference at all, there were slight impacts of guest speakers, female physics teacher, and promoting the work of women scientists. The biggest impact was actually talking about the issues and action planning for change. That really helped girls progress onto A-level physics. So my message for you is this is something we have to start talking about, and we have to start action planning for change because we can make a difference. So thank you very, very much.